Good morning, Xavier. Thank you for joining us today on Business Spotlight Series. Today we have Xavier Bellekens, MD of Lupovis, a company that builds the future of cybersecurity, nothing less, by crafting cyber deception products to help professionals around the world to actively defend their organizations. Wow, a very hot topic today because there is a lot of fraud and that. So, Xavier, can you tell us a little bit more of what you do and how long have you been doing it, please?
All right. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me. And so what do we do? Essentially, we create lures and decoys for adversaries. So far, we've been building a castle, like as defenses. That's been what we've been doing for centuries. And we can see that it's not working. We still see businesses being hacked every single day. And so we've decided to take a slightly different approach. We create decoys, like, for example, a fake door that you'd place on your house. And if anybody opens that fake door, you know something's gone wrong. You would never open the fake door because you know that there's nothing behind, right? And so that's what we do for from SMEs to large enterprise. And we've been doing this now for about 2 years.
Wow, wonderful. And how do you ended up in this business? It's
all right. So that's a very complicated question.
Was
So
the short answer?
short answer, worked for NATO, came to Scotland, did a master's in Dundee in Aberdeen, ethical hacking, somehow ended up doing a PhD at Strathclyde, advising a couple of governments on critical infrastructure cyber. And those questions kind of led to how do we detect adversaries? And so I ended up in that business by chance, one thing leading to another.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Most businesses are created, unexpectedly. Things happen and you go for it. You see the opportunity. Okay. So now, who is the first person that comes to mind when you think about success? Do you have somebody you look up to?
All right. Okay. So this is a very good question. There's different type of success, right? So I'd say my father, and because like I think like keeping a family and and dealing with everyday problem, that's one type of success. And the other person, and I'm sure I'm going to be either hated or loved for it, is Elon Musk. I like some of the ideas, like some of the innovation, and on the other hand, I dislike many things that he's doing as well, but cannot deny that he's not successful.
Yes, definitely. By the way, my dad is also my hero. I think it's a good sign when people say, well, my dad, that's a good sign, it's a good sign. Great. Okay, now, so the business is 2 years old, so it's basically post-COVID, right?
Yep.
We started it after COVID, okay.
So we started during COVID. We're getting out of the university during COVID, essentially.
Okay. And what is your biggest challenge? Your biggest challenge to date in running and building the business?
I think the biggest challenge. So just after COVID was to meet folks again, right? A lot of people wanted to stay online, and we like that close relationship of people. So that was challenge number one post-COVID. And nowadays, with like post-COVID, there was a lot of there's been a lot of layoffs in the tech. We have seen like multiple discussions about recession. And so there's slightly less investment in cybersecurity. On one hand, great for adversaries and hackers because they take advantage of that. On the other hand, very difficult for businesses to go and sell a solution that might help like an organization. So that's probably our challenge number one.
Okay, yeah. So what are your aspirations then for your company in the next 5 years?
All right. So aspirations. So we essentially are not doing too bad. We have a great product, but we are looking at beefing up our sales and marketing. So we raised a seed raise a while back, and so now we are ready at like growing and expanding some parts of the organization.
Okay, so are you looking for, so you're looking for funding, you say, to invest?
So we've had funding, and now we are on our next round. Essentially, that's soon to be concluded, and that's gonna allow us to fuel like sales and marketing effort, on which we're currently, I would say, lacking a tiny bit, and so that's gonna fuel our growth.
Brilliant. Have you had problems recruiting in Glasgow? I mean, many businesses across most industries had it very tough to recruit the right talent, to retain the right talent. How has it been with you?
Not a single issue.
Great.
And I'm going to tell you our secret, right? After a decade in academia, I've had like a long network of students, and so our CTO is one of my ex-students. I knew he was exceptional from the start, and he had been working with a couple of folks and got the folks to join Lupovis. And so we have not had a single issue. We are also a full remote company, which allows us to hire beyond the borders of Glasgow, which has made it much more simpler. And I know this is not an option for everyone out there, right? But in our case, it's something that works quite well.
Yeah, in your case, everybody can be remote, right?
Exactly.
And there is a lot of talent going east.
Yes, that's true. There is talent going east. There's a lot of talent south as well. So we've had quite a few contacts with like folks in Spain and the south of France, where there's a bit less, like in the south of France, a bit less industry, like next to Bordeaux, but with a lot of like a big untapped talent pool, for example.
Yeah, wonderful. How many people do you have in the team to date?
So we are about 10.
Okay. Are they all full-time?
All full-time, yeah.
Very good. Excellent. So a great piece of advice there, networking, recruiting from students, but you've been in the world, in academia, so you've built your network there.
I've not had any other chance. Like I could only network. I had to talk to the students, right? I couldn't turn my back on them, right?
Yeah. You've saved thousands of pounds on recruitment, fees, You
know what? I think that because like we hired our CTO, which was one of my ex-students, and having that network and being able to build a network, even though you may not be like actively recruiting today, definitely helps like 6 months from now or a year from now. The moment you're recruiting, you can go and talk to some folks and say, hey, by the way, like I'm currently looking, I don't know, for a sales or a marketing person. And they might not be looking for a job, but they might tell you, I know this person is looking for a job. And so that does, I think, help or could help a lot.
Yes. No, that's wonderful. What are your biggest learnings as an employer since you began the business?
Ooh. All right. So this is an interesting question. I was an academic before, so there was a lot of things that I didn't know about business, right? Like for example, selling. I was good at writing because that's what academics do, good at managing projects, but sales was definitely not one of them. Marketing was not one of them. Management also is very different in a business and a university. And so I think all of those are skills that I was lacking, and it took me quite a bit of time to go and read books and understand what were the best ways of doing all of that. So at the moment, I think on the management side, right, it's been a steep learning curve, because usually when you have like a team of academics and researchers, you'll say, go and do this, and you'll expect them to figure it out. And usually it's something that's like at the edge of science, or you expect it to be at the edge of science. So nobody's ever done it before, but they have that methodology to go and push it. With an organization, you cannot go and tell your developer, here's what I do, there's no specs, go and do it, right? So it's been a inner work, like work on myself, to make sure that I was giving the right instructions to the right people at the right time.
Wow, incredible. By the way, going back to the recruitment piece, I love the mantra, slow to recruit, fast to fire. So you say, well, I've got a network of people 6 months down the line, that's taking your time to recruit the right people.
That's right.
In the team. Fantastic. Okay, so are there any tools that have helped you with managing parts of the business's finance or marketing or project management that you want to share with all the business owners out there?
Yeah, so, okay, on the finance one, I do not manage this finance, so we have outsourced finance. And so, like, essentially, they share with me like a number of Excel sheet, but we use like Dext, for example, and a couple of other tools out there. Now, on managing the rest of the organization, we use ClickUp. That allows us essentially to manage like our day-to-day tasks and making sure that we stay on track. We use, like, because we are a full remote company, we definitely use Slack, and as well as Discord for a developers team, which helps us like stay in contact all of the time. Are there any other tools? I think for us, communication is probably the biggest and the most important element, because we don't see each other during the day. So communication is the most important. I'm trying to think if like there's any other key tools that organizations should use. On the finance, not that much, right? But on the engineering side, there's a couple of tools that like Notion, for example. I don't know if like the people may have come across, but it's kind of a shared notepad, and it allows us to document all of the things that we do and move forward.
Yeah, it's called Notion.
Yeah, Notion.
Okay, I know that one. Okay, great. What does the future look like, and what do you see as the main challenges moving forwards to grow the business to where you want to be?
All right. So for us, it's definitely sales. I think so. We have recruitment underhand. We have the product underhand. So at the moment for us is to be able to sell. And as I said, I was not a born salesman, so it takes a bit of time to get it in hand. So that's definitely where I currently see the challenge, the main challenge that we are having, and practice.
Yeah. No, great. If you've got the product sorted, and I was listening this morning to a podcast, and the guy, the CEO, was talking about product, and he put the example of Steve Jobs that had the product nailed down, and it's a good place to start. I mean, if you have a good product there,
I think that's right, but not everybody is a visionary like Steve Jobs, right? I think we have to be slightly realistic, right? We talk a lot with our customers, whether they're small or large enterprise. We have like a bi-weekly meeting with them to make sure that we are evolving the product the right way. And this gives us an advantage to make sure that we are not going to build, because Steve Jobs came up with the iPod, right? Or he came up like with the iPhone and all of those great stuff, and he had nailed the project. I'm sure they had focus groups and all of those great stuff, but it came out of his brain as something that he wanted to push forward. And we try to do slightly similar approach, but we want to go and talk to client as much as possible to make sure that we do not waste any engineering effort or any effort in any way for that matter. And so the next thing that we have done is understanding our customers. What do they want? Where do they want it? How do they want it? What type of format? And is there a difference between like an SME customer and a large enterprise or a large bank customer? And how do we package this for them? And now that we've got that path, it's about like reaching out to more customers and say, we know you've got that cybersecurity problem and we are able to solve it for you, right? So that's where I see the sale more as the challenge as opposed to the product at this stage.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. What would you say to anyone thinking of going into business? They are employee today and they are thinking, setting up their own business. What would you say to them?
All right. Two things. The first one is make a small trial today and build a community around it, right? So you can build a great product. And I talk to founders every couple of days. And you see sometimes founders investing 10 grand into an application because they believe it's going to work. That's the wrong way of doing it. Definitely the wrong way. Because if nobody knows about you and nobody knows about the product, the chances it's going to fly on day one is super low. It's going to be super hard. If you're able to build a tiny prototype, costless prototype, invest 500 quid, maybe a grand if you've got it. Go and talk to people about it. Network, so that people hear about you, they see your name, they associate you with the product, they associate you with like a voice, and you've got a community of people that you can talk to. It makes it much easier to gain some traction. A lot of the folks I talk to and that are like, I do this with the University of Strathclyde, for example, where they've got like a business program to let students build their businesses and go and of course they're not yet employees, but the thing that comes up quite often is like, I don't want to put myself out there because I don't think people can learn from me. There's always something that you are one step ahead of someone else. It doesn't matter what it is. You might have a tiny bit more knowledge than the next one. And so share that knowledge. Nobody's going to come and steal the idea. Share what you know and build that community around what you know. And suddenly that community is going to be rolling. And it might take a bit of time, but ultimately it's going to allow for smoother transition. And I think for me, this is easier than taking a decision today and saying, I've got a well-paid job. Tomorrow, I'm going to go and open like a bakery. It's difficult. It's not something that's as easy as it sounds. And that decision is life-changing, right? So I would say start and selling cupcakes and see if like people like your cupcakes or like your bread, right? And then move on to selling maybe patisseries or anything, and then build it up as you move forward.
Yes, Jim Rohn was renowned for saying this, that when you want to go into business, to start growing it by the side, and when it catches up with your current income, salary, then you stop your job and focus on the...
Exactly. Especially, if you're young, you'll find a job, right? It's less scary if you're 23 and you start a business today and you're going to say, I'm going to go and open my t-shirt brand, right? Yes. If you're 45, like it becomes a bit more scary. And if you're 60, it becomes a lot more scarier.
Yes.
And I think because like you get set in your ways, but to be frank, in my opinion, and that's for me, leaving university and opening a business was the best decision I've done. And for most of the entrepreneurs that I am talking with, it's always the best decision they have done, because you are in charge. You're dependent on nobody. The amount of work that you're going to be putting in is the amount of reward that you're going to get out.
Yeah.
But you've got to build that community. You've got to go and talk about it. You've got to express yourself about it.
Yes.
And I think this is important.
Excellent. And just to finish, last question from me. Do you have any advice for your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, don't do a PhD and open a business.
Well done. Well said. Not everybody can do a PhD, by the way.
Listen, I think it's like probably the better advice that's gonna reach a bit more people, because that was a very, very self-focused, but challenge yourself. Like, I think quite often we get set in our own way, and even when we are 18, and I think having the ability to try a couple of things, right? Even if you fail, you're gonna learn from the failure. As long, like, it doesn't matter if you fail, learn something out of it, and take a bit of time to reflect onto
Yes.
why it failed. And I think this is probably a better advice than don't do a PhD.
Yeah. Challenge yourself and get yourself out of the comfort zone.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. That was excellent. Xavier, it's been a real pleasure to have you join us today at the Spotlight series, and for sharing your experience with us today. Thank you.
Javier, thank you very much for having me. It was great.